Limited hip internal rotation increases the risk of developing lower back pain, abdominal injuries, hip impingement and hip pain, as well as ACL tear. But the problem is most exercises used to improve this motion don't work. The reason why is because there's a lack of understanding of the biomechanics needed to improve this motion. You're gonna learn the biomechanics in this video so you can choose better exercises. In fact, I'm gonna show you my 4 favorite exercises to improve hip internal rotation. And if you stick around to the end and you master these moves, I'll give you a move that will improve your hip IR like mega, but you gotta work your way up to it. But first, what is hip internal rotation anyways? Sure, it is the hip joint moving inward, but there's so much more to it than that. Internal rotation is used to put force into the ground. If yours is limited, your ability to load will be altered in a negative manner. So to increase hip IR, we have to work on our ability to put force into the ground. And we have to do that at ranges of motion where hip internal rotation occurs. There's 2 of them. The first is hip extension. As I extend the hip towards 0, the femur must internally rotate. When this internal rotation happens, it creates an action called sacral nutation. That's when the sacrum tips forward and the innominates, the pelvic bones, rotate back. The second time is 60 to 100 degrees of hip flexion. Because of changes in the posterior rotators of the hip, they produce more IR. This opens up the pelvic outlet, which again drives relative sacral nutation. So to improve hip internal rotation, you have to work in ranges where hip IR occurs, and you have to produce force one of 2 ways, either slowing the eccentric or putting the brakes on the car, or pushing yourself away from the ground, putting the foot on the gas. And you have to do it in a specific order. First is the initial sacral nutation, which you need to stand. The frog breathing exercise, where you're driving hip IR from a position that opens that up, is great for that. So what you want to do is you want to have your knees wider than your hips, feet will be together, walk forward so your hips are ahead of your knees, and make the same triangle with your arms. Start sagged. Your contact points are going to be the inner knee, the elbow, and the base of the wrist. Look straight down. You're going to silently breathe in through the nose. On the exhale, apply slight downward pressure through all of those points. If you get it right, your torso is going to move away. Make sure you apply this pressure straight down at the pace of the exhale. Hold this position, quietly breathe in through the nose, soft exhale through the mouth. Don't make the common screw-ups of overreaching and rounding, or not pushing through the legs, because you'll end up arching your back. Perform 5 sets of 5 breaths 2 times per day for 2 to 4 weeks before moving on to the next move. Next is working towards 90 degrees of hip flexion, where you get that braking force of hip internal rotation. For that, we're going to use a box squat iso hold. Find a box or a chair to use as a marker. Toe out slightly, because remember, you don't have much hip internal rotation, so you want to start in more external rotation. To progress over time, you can bring the feet to center, but for right now, you're not there yet. While the feet are out, you're going to soften the knees and keep them bent. Silently breathe in through the nose. On the exhale, you're going to reach towards the ground and push your hips back slightly without letting the knees move. Most people during this will straighten the knees. That's going to limit your access into your hips. From here, bend the elbows slightly and squat down, aiming for the chair behind you. Hold this position. Once you feel the glutes work, quietly breathe in through the nose, softly exhale through the mouth. If you start to notice your back, just come up a little bit. Perform that move for 5 sets, 5 breaths, 2 times per day for 2 to 4 weeks before moving on. Now it's time to put force into the ground at that same range. For that, we're going to use a quadruped hip shift. Get on hands and knees. Make sure you got 90-degree angles at the hip joint and the shoulders. You want weight on your kneecaps and the entire hand, so you're gonna make sure that the hand is flat. Start sagged, look straight down. From here, you're gonna silently breathe in through the nose. On the exhale, press the kneecaps and the hands down, but you don't wanna go all the way like this to where you've taken up all the slack. It's really subtle. Get heavy on one kneecap. Whatever side you get heavy on, that's the side you're gonna get the IR gains. So I'm gonna get heavy on the kneecap in the opposite hand, so that way I can lift my hand and my other kneecap off the ground. Silently breathe in through the nose. On the exhale, progressively get more and more weight on those points. You might feel the back of the hip work on the pressing leg. Perform 5 sets, 5 breaths, 2 times per day for 2 to 4 weeks on whichever side you need hip IR on. And then to drive hip extension, which is going to get you the terminal internal rotation, we're going to use a side lying stride. Lie on your side, bottom arm is going to act like a pillow for your head, top leg parallel to the ground with the knee slightly bent. Top hand is going to be contacting the ground. You want to roll forward so that way you have some weight on the bottom outside knee and the hand. Silently breathe in through the nose. On the exhale, you want to apply pressure into the wall on the inner heel and the base of the big toe. If you get it right, you're going to feel your top side glute working. Hold this position, silently breathe in through the nose. Exhale, progressively push heavier into the wall, making sure you keep the hand and knee contact points. As you push, you do not want your knee to straighten. If your knee straightens, you're not going to get the hip rotation. Perform that move for 5 sets, 5 breaths, 2 times per day for 2 to 4 weeks. Now, after working those moves, you might think that you're beast mode when it comes to driving hip IR, but you really haven't mastered it until you do this finisher, the bottoms up split squat hold. This move is money because you're putting force into the ground, both with the flexed and the extended leg, getting a twofer, as we say in the Midwest, of hip IR gains. Start in half kneeling. You want a straight line from your kneecap all the way to your head. Do not be the person who's got the really long stride or the really short stride. Be right in the middle. Get a little bit of weight through that kneecap. In the front foot, you want weight on the inner heel and the base of the big toe. Eyes are going to look straight ahead. Silently breathe in through the nose. Exhale. Get heavy on the front foot. Hold this position, hovering off of the ground. Quietly breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. Now with that move, you should feel your front quad and glute doing the work. But if you feel mostly the back leg, use the back big toe to push your weight a little bit forward, making sure you load into the front leg. You'll want to perform 5 sets, 5 breaths, 2 times per day for 2 to 4 weeks. Now, people who have limited hip motion also often present with rounded shoulders, and this can impact your shoulder mobility. If that sounds like you, I would check out this video right here, where I go into some of my favorite moves to address this common posture.